Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends. This is episode 72 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. This is Byron. I'm here with Gary.
How's everybody doing today?
I hope they're doing great out there. We're happy that we're in their ears this week.
Happy that everybody's listening.
I've got a great interview this week and next.
What do we got? Who are we interviewing, Byron?
A gentleman by the name of Steve Maxwell.
Awesome.
One of the first American black belts. He is now 62 years old. He travels the world teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and lifestyle fitness. Just absolutely a great conversation with Steve, and it was long enough to where I split it in half, and you get him for 2 weeks in a row. So really good times and a lot of good information coming out of Steve.
Yeah, like you said, he was one of the first black belts. I remember when I first started, always seeing stuff from him. He was also one of the first guys into kettlebells. And before we'd ever hear about kettlebells, whenever I was trying to figure out how to use kettlebells, I'd always Google him also for both my jiu-jitsu and kettlebells. So I've learned a lot from this guy, and I've never even met him, but just from watching his videos, I've learned a ton. He
was actually the first person in the United States to start teaching kettlebells.
Oh, okay. I just learned something.
He's still on like the forefront of exercise and fitness, and he's up with what's new and what is good about it and what he doesn't like about it. So he's just an amazing guy. He travels around the world. Everything he owns fits in a backpack, and
that's awesome.
He just travels. And I think we can talk more about that in the second part of the interview about how his lifestyle is. But man, really interesting awesome guy. The entire time during the interview, he's got earbud in and a microphone with that, and he's walking around. He's actively moving and not staying still, and it's kind of fun. You can hear some birds in the background. It's kind of funny.
But like you were saying earlier, 62 years old, a black belt, just incredible fitness, and that's what the fitness lifestyle, the jiu-jitsu lifestyle does for you. It keeps you going. I mean, here's a guy, and he'd probably take care of 99.9% of the people in their, in their 20s.
Yeah.
He's in that much better shape.
If you're finding yourself like getting to where it doesn't really matter what age you are, but if you're getting up there and you feel like you're getting up there in age, really listen to the part of the interview where he talks about intrinsic goal setting opposed to external goals, because I think that's a big difference in how it helps you mentally be able to stay in the game longer and do well.
That's all. Do you know if that's in the first part or
that's in this? That's in today. That's in this episode. Okay. Yeah,
definitely. I can't wait to hear that part.
Yeah, Gary, happy birthday, buddy!
Yes. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that.
Getting younger every year, aren't you?
48 years young.
48 years young. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know if that's good.
Do anything fun today, or get any mat time in?
I got a double rolling session in from 9 to 11. Came home, ate lunch with my family, and then I got another from 2 to 4 in, and 4 o'clock we're doing the podcast. So then after this, I'll go grab something to eat. So awesome day, can't complain.
And Gary doesn't mind the snow, do you?
No, I love the snow anyhow. So I forgot shoveling snow there too. So between, but yeah, good day. And then tonight we got the UFC, and then also we've got two of our former guests, Jason Bircher and Rolly Delgado in Jiu-Jitsu tournament there, and also Renato Tavares. So a lot of people we know in that tournament.
Yeah, we got an action-packed night, but of course, by the time this is out, people will have already had the opportunity to see it.
Yep.
So if you haven't seen that,
I forgot about that part.
The Respect One.
Yeah.
Go by the website and check it out. I'll hopefully remember to put a link on the show notes, because hopefully they'll put the matches up. I don't know if they will or not, but they're going to be some good.
Hopefully it's Respect One. Hopefully they keep putting these together, because that's an incredible lineup they have.
Absolutely, it looks like just absolutely great card of jiu-jitsu super fights. So
yep.
I already mentioned a little bit about we talked about goal setting. He also has a really cool tip for breathing on the mat, how to control your breathing. So
That's definitely worth it right there.
It's a fun one. I'm looking forward to trying it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to it and then trying it.
So, Gary, you're would you say 48 now? You got two mat sessions the day you turn 48.
Definitely, yeah.
I'm 35, and I had to sit out today because my lower back is sore from playing dodgeball.
Hey, though, dodgeball, you can't beat that.
It was like I reached down to, at the very beginning, you sit against the wall, then you run towards the middle and you grab the ball.
Yeah.
So I reached down and I tried to grab two, and like the motion of me getting back up quickly, that pulling on my back, it's like, oh! And then, of course, you have to not get hit by a ball, too. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You're on the mats, 4 or 5 days a week, training hard and staying healthy, and you pull your back muscle playing dodgeball. That
was a workout, though. It's like
dodgeball.
I feel like a white belt, because I'm a little amped up and I'm excited about it, and I'm breathing hard, although I didn't do much exercise. It's like, man, not that I'm not doing much exercise, but it didn't take you much if you're a beginner at jiu-jitsu to get pretty darn tired. And I was tired from dodgeball, and I didn't really do. I mean, even if you play a lot, you don't even do. I mean, you throw a couple balls, and then. But it was fun. But I'm a little sore. I wake up and I just can't move very well for a little while, and then and if I sit down for too long, it kind of acts up on me. But all in the episode, I've got Steve Maxwell, who's 62, kicking butt, and you just have a birthday, and I'm the youngest guy at 35, and I'm all hurt. So I should be back on the mat within a few days. Anyway, all right, Gary, let's get our quote of the week here, buddy.
It's no victory without sacrifice.
No victory without sacrifice?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you when you think back to all your victories?
Oh, it's honestly everything, all my victories, inside the mat, outside the mat, was a lot of sacrifice, and so came from very poor family, and so I had to go through a lot of stuff, to survive, and but I had a lot of help from a lot of good people. They like me, and they helped me all these many years, help me with good advice, help me financially, help me with everything. So I think and I had to sacrifice a lot of stuff, and to make this happen. I think in any victory, man, any victory, if you win, if you go to a competition today, right? So you have been not trained for a month. You're not trained. You just came to the school today. You say, hey guys, I'm back training. They go, oh, you got a competition this weekend. You say, no, I'll do it. Got a lot to lose. So I go. Then you go there and you win. You don't have the same feeling because you didn't work hard for that.
Yeah.
You could be happy, hey guys, I won't look that nice, but inside yourself, that doesn't mean a lot, nothing for you, because on your mind you didn't work hard. So you have to really work hard for everything you have. So they're gonna give away value for everything,
Yeah.
So that's why I think the victory without sacrifice is the best way to describe them.
Yeah, and maybe you could win. But without sacrifice, you're not really victorious. You haven't taken it past just the win to really being something off the mat that you're going to take away from, and an experience to learn about, and really just more than just the like you said, you could win if it's an easy tournament. It's disappointing versus if you train hard and you work for it. That's a better deal.
Yeah, exactly.
That was our last week's interview guest, Robson Moura. No victory without sacrifice. And that's a very interesting quote, because you can win without sacrifice. It's possible, but you don't have that victorious feeling.
Yeah, you definitely want to, put the work in there. You want to have the tough matches. You don't just want to roll through everybody and smiling the whole time. It's you're down, you're coming back to win, you got some really tough matches, you get done, you're exhausted, it's so much more fulfilling.
Yeah.
You put in 90 days of training to get there, working hard every day, and finally at the end when you're standing up there on the podium, it all came to fruition. It's just you sacrificed, and now you can reap the rewards.
Yeah, I don't know how relative it is, but I remember being at a tournament where a guy was, I think it was a no-gi, and he wanted to do beginner, and he ended up, his coach told him to do intermediate, and he was a little disappointed. Like, he wanted to do beginner, and I think he got bronze in the intermediate, and he was like, man, he was still telling. I was talking to him a little bit, and he's still saying he could have won beginner. I said, man, you really can't compare the two. I mean, if you're a beginner and you win, that's awesome, but intermediate bronze is great.
Yeah, definitely, especially if you're on the lower. He's probably on the lower end there if he's thinking that, and his coach is probably trying to put him up a little bit. So to get a bronze in the intermediate is just awesome.
I guess the only reason why this pops in my head is if he were to have won the beginner division and he really should have belonged in the intermediate, it wouldn't have meant as much to him maybe. And he wasn't real happy with the bronze. But
maybe. I don't think everybody's like that, though. I think that's a great way to be. But I do think there's a lot of people who would rather just get the win.
Yeah.
Without any sacrifice, without just the easy one. I do think there are people like that.
Yeah. You're I'm sure you're right. But just keep in mind if you're doing a tournament like this, or there's more to it than just the win. I mean, it's the entire experience of it, and the training hard up to it is a big part of that. So the sacrifice, what Hobson Moore is talking about.
Yeah, I like what you said right there. There's more to it than just the win, and that is so true. It's a journey. It's just the fun, the sacrifice of going through all that. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, or more to it than even a loss. Like, imagine, Gary, if let's just say in 6 months somebody's going to attack you, and like it's like I predict the future, Gary. You're going to be jumped in the dark alley.
Just let me know the day and time so I can be packed.
But let's say you've never done much competing, or really never done much on the mat. So before that 6 months, you're going to do 5 tournaments, and you're going to lose them all. But that time on the mat will be like, who cares if you lost those tournaments? You don't want to lose this altercation that you could die in, or you get hospitalized. That's the big one.
Well, it's a death match. I mean, basically.
What's your record in those?
I'm 14-19 in death matches, so not a bad record.
Yeah, that's decent. I mean,
yeah, a little under 500. I've died more than I've won.
Hopefully, we'll either get you out of that business or get you a few more wins. I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, there we go. But like you said,
there are no winners. It's a journey.
The win is.
It's a
long journey.
It's a long journey, man. All right, let's go to our article of the week. We've got 7 reasons why your child should practice martial arts, and it's on breakingmuscle.com.
And I tell you, I saw this article being passed around through Facebook, and just with my son there. I have a son who's 7 years old, and he wrestles, and which, in my opinion, is a martial art. And I just thought it was great. It kind of appealed to me, dealing with kids there.
Yeah, Gary, I agree that wrestling, as far as self-defense aspect, it is definitely a martial art. I mean, it picked up. But why do you, not to immediately get off topic, but explain why you feel wrestling is a martial art real quick.
It's really just a combat sport, and I hear a lot of people don't. I think of boxing and wrestling as probably the easiest martial arts to train. You can start wrestling easily. It's cheap. Boxing, same thing. But I think a lot of times people don't think of boxing and wrestling as a martial art. They think more of Jiu-Jitsu, more of Judo, more of Taekwondo, and maybe it's because of uniforms, because of gis and belts or something of that sort. I'm not sure why, but I've always thought wrestling and boxing as martial arts. I've had conversations with people over this many times.
I like how martial arts is supposed to affect you. Not just on the mat, like if it's just a sport, you go and do it. But if it's martial art, it has that effect. And with school, if someone's doing poorly in their grades or they're getting in trouble, that's going to affect your wrestling. You may not be able to wrestle anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And you hear about boxing all the time, and a lot of times you'll see boxing more prevalent in lower socioeconomic areas, and you always hear the stories about the kid from the rough area of town, and and he ends up having a coach that takes him under his wing, makes him get good grades. The guy graduates from high school, goes on to the Junior Olympics, and I always hear good stories like that. I like to hear and see that stuff. But
That's cool.
Definitely martial arts does affect you on and off the mat, and off the mat's a big key. The biggest key is just as important as on the mat.
Yeah. So on these 7 reasons why your kid should be practicing martial arts, if you can't afford to actually take him to jiu-jitsu or whatever, school wrestling is great if that's available. So
Yeah, definitely.
And this article is written by Eric Stevens. He starts off with a Bruce Lee quote: "Martial arts is ultimately self-knowledge. A punch or a kick is not to knock the hell out of the guy in front of you, but is to knock the hell out of your ego, your fear, and your hang-ups." It's good for anybody, not just kids.
Yeah, I really do like that.
So, Gary, let's get on with this. Reason number 1.
Basically, they and you will get more active. And basically, in our society today, we've got a major obesity problem. A lot of times, back in my day, we got home from school and we played outside all day with a stick or whatever, kickball, dodgeball. And today, video games are so prevalent. So you see a lot of the kids come home, both parents are working. You go out to eat at McDonald's, or you bring it home through the drive-thru. You spend the whole day on the computer. Where the good thing is, if you're into martial arts, any type of martial arts, you're getting exercise, and it's definitely going to promote fitness and keep you slim, keep you lighter.
Yeah, well said. This goes hand in hand with having Steve Maxwell on today. The importance of being fit and starting the kids young. I remember reading an article that Steve Maxwell wrote, or maybe it was an interview he did, but he mentioned like the parents running with kids in strollers, and the kid is big enough to ride a bike, or next to him or something. Like let the kid work out too. Don't just push them along and make them. It's not a form of babysitting. Get them out there working out. Get that started early.
Yeah. See, what I used to do is I would get in the stroller and let my kid push me.
There you go.
That was
How about halfway through switch? The second reason is they learn to find focus and stillness. And this is something that maybe martial arts do better than just general sports. Really taking it into the focus of what you're doing and how important it is. And
that's definitely helps you. We're talking off the mat too. That's going to help you on and off the mat. Number 3. They'll learn to take hits, and we're not just necessarily talking, a punch to the face or a kick to the ribs. That's part of it. You do learn to take that, but we take all hits. The hit can be a disappointment, like failing a test. It's just a setback, and the key is learning how to best take that hit and get back up. The key is get back up, and what I like is he said this lesson seems to be lost on many in our every kid gets a trophy culture. And so it's like we're going to have failures, we're going to have disappointments, but the thing is we get back on our feet, we work harder, and we learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, he does say in this part as well, half of martial arts is hitting, the other half is getting hit. And jiu-jitsu is the same thing. Half is getting submitted and half is doing submission. So you learn.
On my side, it's 99% is getting submitted, and 1% is trying to submit somebody.
Number 4 reason is a big one, is they gain self-confidence and self-respect. So I guess if you don't understand really what's going on in the mats, if you're new to this, the ego gets smaller, but you gain self-confidence, which is different than having a large inflated ego, because a lot of times that is like a lack of confidence, and you want to feel that way. But to actually know that you are a strong person is way better than having that ego that's inflated artificially. That I think could be damaging, and suffering those losses. I mean, that is where it is. That does help confidence as well, because if you suffer a loss and you come back and you keep training, I think that builds tremendous confidence, opposed to just quitting and moving on and doing something different.
Yeah, that's definitely true there. Reason number 5, you'll connect your mind and body. And, that sounds spiritual or whatever, but, it's true. I like where he says, how often has we heard the phrase being paralyzed with fear? And what martial arts will do will help you be able to combat that or combat it. It's easy to just be paralyzed with fear, but getting out there on the mat, doing something in front of other people, and you face your fear head on, and pretty soon it starts diminishing.
Reason number 6 is they learn conflict resolution, and I think that goes back with the confidence thing. If you know you're going to be okay in a fight, you feel okay not fighting, and that little bit of nervousness that the kid is going to have anyway won't be a ton of nervousness, and they'll just start going crazy. One of the first things that they teach in a lot of martial arts is that words are not a reason to fight somebody. So if a kid is saying rude things to you and being mean, that's not a reason to fight that other kid. If it's to where you're getting physically hurt or you're going to, that would be the time that you need to defend yourself.
Yep, so true there. Number 7, I thought this was great too, especially with Steve Maxwell, where we're talking about fitness. Number 7 is you'll learn to breathe, and somebody's like, hey, we all know how to breathe, but it's just how somebody breathes. Nothing is more essential to the success of how we move our body, than tapping into the life force of our breath. Learning how to breathe is so important. It relaxes you. It keeps you from getting tired. It keeps that adrenaline down from happening. It's a very important skill to have.
Yeah, and he closes this out by saying the bottom line is that almost any child can benefit and will benefit from the participation in martial arts. So I'd stand by that.
Yeah.
Gary, you've got kids. I don't have any kids, but the kids I see come in and train, they benefit a lot, and you could almost see them change in the course of a couple months and gain that confidence and gain a lot. There's a lot to what happens on a kid. They transform sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing I've seen, with my kid is the self-confidence and self-respect, and also the taking hit parts. Not necessarily getting punched, but, my kid's getting slaughtered out there on the mat a lot of times. And when you're a kid, you want to win every time, and it's teaching him, hey, we got to get back up. You can't just fall down. We're going to get back up, and we're going to go out and try again. So I can see, how much, I can look at all 7 of these reasons and, just see how it's helped my kid. But I also like, he talked about the bottom line is any child can benefit. But I do like, he said the key is choosing a teacher or school. Do your due diligence, find a good teacher, because, some people are better with kids. Some, everybody's a little different. And it's funny, your instructor there, Jake Fox, where you train there, my son has done his strength class, summer wrestling conditioning class, and my son was just telling me the other day how he couldn't wait for the summer again to do that with Jake, and I've seen Jake around kids. He's so great with kids, and for my son to say that, I thought that was pretty cool.
Cool, and he's got another customer another year because the kid actually. They enjoy it, if you do it right. It's not a hard thing to drag them to.
Yeah, he actually told me he couldn't wait for it and he wanted to know when it starts. So yeah, that's pretty neat.
And that does. I mean, if I'm just thinking that there are a lot of bad programs for kids martial arts out there. That's just the reality. You can go to the Y and there could be some a good instructor, or there could be a terrible instructor. And if you don't know the difference between the martial arts at the Y, it's just unfortunate that there's a lot of watered down martial arts out there. But some is better than nothing, I guess, if that's all you have that's available. But Jiu-Jitsu is
you go back to that first point. Yeah, some is better than nothing. You will get more active, but I don't know. I just hate when I learn something incorrectly and have to go back and fix that. If I'm going to take that long journey, if it's going to be something I'm going to keep doing, I definitely want to get in with a quality instructor.
You know what? I'm thinking another way. If you train, and even if there's no kids program where you train at, maybe bring in your kid on the open mat day and then you're going to have to sacrifice some of your mat time to roll with your kid. But you know what? Your kid's going to remember that. Your kid is going to be able to say, "I do jiu-jitsu." That's a big deal, even if it's just a couple times a month or even just once a month.
My son came with me to open mat this morning, and I bet me and him rolled around for a good 30 minutes, and those were times I'll never forget. He'll probably forget him. He's probably already has forgotten him now. But I really enjoyed it. It's neat. It's fun. Yeah,
I remember when he was. I mean, kids are more shy when they don't know you, obviously, but. Now he'll run up and tackle me and start cranking on my neck. Have his guillotine that he does, and it's amazing how much he's changed over the time since when you started bringing him in.
Yeah, it's confidence. It really is. You get a little bit better. You get more. But wrestling, I think, is really giving him confidence. And then he's just more confident because you bring him in too. He just around the surroundings. It's normal.
Yeah, and that's cool. I'm sure he'll remember. I mean, he may not remember each particular role or anything funny that happened, but he'll remember going and training with you. That's how would he forget that?
Yeah, and those are the best time. The best things that could probably ever happen right there.
So check out the article. There's much more on there. BreakingMuscle.com. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Make it easier to find, but it wouldn't be hard to find anyway. Gary.
Yes.
Let's get on with Steve Maxwell, and then we'll come back and talk about a few other things and call it a day. Oh, before we get to the interview, don't you like how I just throw that out there?
Hey,
I'm thinking about moving the show to come out on, Thursdays is what I'm thinking. So
perfect.
This one should come out Monday, but if it moves, I'll try to give you a more definitive time for the audience here, but it may move to a different day, which just makes my schedule a little bit easier. So anyway, well, here comes
Thursday's just as good a day as Monday. So
I mean, Gary will do the bulk of our recording on the weekend, and we'll do the interviews anytime we can get somebody, based on our schedules. But when it comes out, hey, if you want to wait till Monday to download it, that's fine too.
Yep, perfect.
So we'll see what happens. I'm not sure about that, but all right, here comes the Steve Maxwell interview, part 1. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He does the berimbolo while passing your guard. He is known for a lightning-fast gi choke that he only does in no-gi. His triangle choke has 4 sides. One of his cauliflower ears was eaten by a vegetarian.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Steve Maxwell to the BJJ Brick podcast. Steve, how are you doing today?
I am doing fabulous. I had a great night's sleep, had a beautiful training yesterday with one of my young students, and I'm feeling top of the morning, as they say here in Australia.
All right. That's cool. I'm glad to hear things are going great for you. A little bit of background about you. You were one of the first Americans to get a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think you're the first person to start teaching kettlebells in the United States. You're one of the top fitness instructors in the world as far as teaching health and fitness and a variety of aspects with that. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I always was attracted to sports, but I wasn't particularly athletic as a child. I used to get my ass kicked a lot by the neighborhood bullies, and my dad saw that, and he was an ex-Navy boxer. He actually won the Pacific Fleet Championship during World War II as a little bantamweight, and so he was trying to teach me and my brother how to box, and I would get so mad every time I got punched by my brother. I would get furious. I'd throw the gloves off and grab him and tackle him and throw him down. And my dad said, "You're no boxer. we're going to make you go out for wrestling, man." So he literally took me kicking and screaming, basically, drug me to the wrestling practice in 7th grade. And I was under great protest. But I did it, and all of a sudden I realized I'm actually kind of good at this, I sucked at baseball. I wasn't particularly good at football. I was too little as a small kid. And track and field, I never was fast enough or had the endurance to do endurance events. But damn if wrestling wasn't my cup of tea. And it was a lifelong love affair with grappling. And that's how I got started. And interestingly enough, a lot of guys, when they start strength training and weight training, they're interested in maybe bodybuilding or maybe powerlifting, or the weights become an end into itself.
Yeah.
For me, right from the beginning, I just wanted to do everything I could to make myself a better grappler. And so all my weight training was based on performance as opposed to lifting weights as an end unto itself. I mean, there was a phase where when I was like 16, 17, I got bit by the bodybuilding bug and wanted to get yoked, man, and put on some size. But so I think I was very fortunate. I always seemed to find the right teachers, the right mentors, the right gurus at the right time, the right information, and was very lucky to be on the cutting edge of many, many fitness movements in the country. And, of course, what's the guy do with wrestling after they get out of university? I wrestled NCAA Division I. I had a very good record. My senior year was 18-2-1. Took MACs, which doesn't exist anymore, but that was the Mid-Atlantic Conference Championship. And so I never reached the elite level. But I was a high level, really high. And I just was always looking for that thing to fill the void. From my college wrestling days, it was just such a great thing.
Yeah.
I majored in health and physical education. I did coach wrestling for a couple of years in a local high school outside of Philadelphia. But I quickly found that I preferred working with adults as opposed to kids. In the fitness industry was basically in its infancy back then. Started working part-time in a gym as a freshman, actually, in college. The first Nautilus gym and the Eastern Seaboard at that time, actually. That was when Arthur Jones and his ideas of high-intensity training were making their way into the fitness mainstream. And very exciting times. But, once I got married and had a family and became a householder, wrestling wasn't so easy because most of the training in wrestling usually occurs at universities or high schools mid-afternoon. So if you're a working man with, you just can't take off mid-afternoon to make 3 o'clock, 3:30 training. So that kind of put a damper on my wrestling training. I would go now and again with some friends and meet people here and there, but I started to get more and more sporadic over the time. And I tried different striking martial arts, and much like my beginnings, as a young boxer, I found I didn't really like it. Muay Thai didn't appeal. It just seemed harmful somehow to slam your limbs into a heavy bag. It just seemed like, ow,
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I saw older strikers, they were pretty busted up, a lot of them. So that was like a tip-off to me that maybe it wasn't for me. But I did try. I actually took Kempo Karate from a very, very good instructor in Philadelphia, And I tried Japanese karate. I did Kung Fu. I did Muay Thai for a while. But it just wasn't it just didn't give me that satisfaction and excitement of, getting on the mat and rolling as it did as a young wrestler.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, one of my buddies who was really into Muay Thai, he tells me about these Gracie brothers and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm saying, but Jiu-Jitsu is Japanese, right? No, this is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I thought Jiu-Jitsu was Japanese. And it was like I just couldn't wrap my mind around this idea of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was always thinking of that crazy capoeira and the dance and all that stuff. So I go to the first seminar and on the East Coast that the Gracies did, and I was blown away. I mean, it was like, wow, this is what I've been looking for, man. I couldn't believe how easily they were able to control me with jiu-jitsu, even being a wrestler.
Yeah.
It was because I was one of those real eager guys. As soon as I saw basically what it was. Of course, I volunteered for every time they wanted. I was jumping in there.
How old were you at this point?
Very enthusiastic. I was 38 years old.
Okay.
I was 38 years old when I started. But I was, strong, young 38. I've been in the, like you say, fitness industry. I've been lifting, running, and, doing personal training. So, I had kept my body in pretty decent shape. So I was more, probably more in line with guys in their 20s than 30s at that time. So I was lucky that way. And because I had kept pretty fit. So, I was born. I said to Horian after the seminar, I said, hey, how can I, what do I have to do? I not only do I want to learn this, I want to teach this. He says, well, you got to come out to Torrance. At that time, that was pretty much true. It was almost the only game in town. And so I started making trips out there. At that time, then 1990, my place of business, the Society Ho Club, closed down, and I opened up my own gym. And very shortly after, I put mats in there and started the very first Gracie Training Association in the United States, outside of Torrance. It was I couldn't call it an academy or anything because I wasn't qualified. And I got a blue belt pretty quick. I got my blue belt about 6 months, and got my purple belt in about a year just because of my wrestling background. But there I stayed. It's like reaching your level of incompetence. And I had that wrestler jits going for me, but that doesn't work against the brown belts, the better guys. That works pretty good against other white and blue belts. But man, it took me about 4 years to make the transition from purple to brown, and then another 2 years after that, I got my black from Helson Gracie in Honolulu. I was his first black belt. American black belt, I'm sorry. He had produced many black belts, I'm sure, in Brazil, but as far as I know, I was his first one. And one of the early black belts in the United States, people talk about, the original guys, they got it, but a lot of those belts came from the Machados. The Gracies were a lot stingier with their belts, man, believe me, very stingy. And Horian had started a couple years after, I guess this was probably about 1990, 91, I think. He started the Gracie Instructor Training Program. There was such a huge interest in jiu-jitsu, they decided that they needed to teach people how to teach. And as you know, in the early days, there was a lot of fake guys, people flying up from Brazil with purple belts that mysteriously changed into black belts in the trip.
Yeah.
They get off the plane like a master black belt, and you never knew who you were getting.
Yeah.
The quality of teaching was pretty horrible. And then there was guys who were actually pretty damn good jiu-jitsu guys. They were really tough and good, but their teaching sucked. They didn't know how to teach. They had no clue. Well, Horia, being an amazing business guy as he was, certainly wasn't like one of the best fighters or anything, but man, when it came to teaching, that guy was amazing. Well, him and his father, Elliot Gracie, came up with this concept of how to teach jiu-jitsu and how to break it down, and the order that the student should get the moves in. And they created this instructor training program to teach people like myself how to teach. And it was one of the best educations I ever got. I mean, I had a degree in health and physical education and so forth. I had a bit of a science background. And they were right in line with all the motor learning principles and all the physical education principles that I had been taught at university.
Wow.
So, yeah, and they were, Horian was an educated man. He had a law degree, actually. But as far as I know, Elliot Gracie had no formal education other than just, regular schooling. But he sure knew how to teach, and he sure knew people, and he sure knew how to break things down. And it was an amazing process. And like I said, I was very honored to be the first person to be certified by the Gracie family to teach their brand of jiu-jitsu. And just so your listeners understand, it's all Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And there's certainly amazing practitioners whose last name isn't Gracie,
Yeah.
At one time, I kind of had this idea that you weren't a Gracie, you didn't know jiu-jitsu. I quickly found out that's not true. There's a lot of guys out there that are amazing practitioners that never even trained with anyone named Gracie. But the thing that really distinguished the Gracie family from other jiu-jitsu people was the way they taught. I'm talking about the Elliot Gracie side now. I'm not real familiar with Carlos Gracie's side of the family. I know Henzo is an amazing teacher and a hell of a good guy. But for the most part, I was blown away with the teaching techniques. And the whole idea was to make it user-friendly for normal people. They were trying to teach jiu-jitsu. That was Elliot Gracie's mission, to break it down for normal men, normal women, non-athletic people, businessmen, mothers, children, so that they could keep themselves safe and so that they could defend themselves in realistic situations. And it had nothing to do with, got my knee in your belly, 2 points. Or, hey, I passed the guard, 3 points.
Yeah.
It had to do with the real combat aspect of jiu-jitsu. And a lot of people don't get that. And unfortunately, a lot of the original combat aspects of jiu-jitsu have been completely lost, especially with the popularity of the sport side of jiu-jitsu. And a lot of the stand-up, a lot of people don't even know that there's plenty of strikes in jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. There's strikes, there's takedowns, there's throws, there's a lot of stand-up self-defense. There's weapons, defense against knife, stick, gun, baseball bat. There's even a barroom stool defense. Someone's trying to hit you over the head with a chair or a stool. So it's a lot of people don't know. They really, truly don't. So, it was pretty surprising to me. There was even some really top-level black belts that they don't know. I mean, there was a point, and I don't think he mind me saying this, but I did a lot of strength and conditioning work with a lot of the top Brazilian guys. I was Solo's strength and conditioning coach of the year. He won Abu Dhabi in Sao Paulo. But there was a point at the university where he said, "Hey, would you teach me self-defense?" And I said, "What?" I says, "You're a Hoyler Gracie black belt." And he's, surely he taught you all the stand-up self-defense. He said, "Yeah, when I was like a little kid, but I got so involved with the sport, I pretty much forgot everything." I says, "Truly?" I says, "Wow." And I was blown away because, I mean, I revered this guy. He was kind of like one of my idols, and I'm thinking, I just felt so honored that he would want me to teach him self-defense. And he said, he'd forgotten because he hadn't done it for years and years. He'd done it as a kid at Hoyler School in Umaita, but, it's one of those things that you do have to practice regularly like everything else. It's a little easier to maintain your self-defense than your sportive skills, but you still have to practice. And, it's one of the last things to go. Your ability to do jiu-jitsu as you get older will diminish no matter what you do. There's my dad used to say, "No one gets out of here alive, Steve." So we all fade, our physical powers fade, our muscles shrink, and we die. It's just, part of this world, this earthly world. Nothing lasts forever. However, you can maintain your self-defense skills well into advanced age. I can remember I stayed with Elliot Gracie for a month one time down at his farm in Brazil. And he would give me lessons and his little dojo he had there beside his house. And I was just amazed at how this man in his that time he was in his late 80s, almost 88 or 89, I think. You really couldn't do anything to this guy without getting badly hurt. You know what I mean? It was like, how can this little skinny old man? But I mean, that's the power of jiu-jitsu. It was really, really amazing to me. So, that was pretty much my background. I had a love affair right from the beginning with jiu-jitsu, and I was lucky enough that I had set up my lifestyle so that I could actually put mats in a personal training gym I had in Center City, Philadelphia. And that was basically that was before Henzo Gracie or any of those guys. I was the very first one in the Eastern Seaboard of the United States with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. But it was all part of an extension of my original wrestling. It was just this love affair with grappling and just how good it made me feel. And I was very much identified with that particular activity in martial art.
You think you talked about how blown away you were by their teaching techniques, and having done wrestling for so long and learned how to wrestle with those teaching techniques, and it is more for the athletic geared market. For the people who are athletic, you're going to wrestle in high school, junior high, college, not in that order, but but then to be taught something from the non-athletic perspective and to see how they do that, was that part of why you were so impressed by it?
Well, yeah, just their ability to break down the skill and the way they would link the skills together and the way that one skill would seg into another skill. And then their method was to, let's say we have 4 moves and you teach move A and then you practice. And it was also found that, sets of 3, 6, 9, something about 3s really impressed the nervous system.
Yeah.
And you would do, 6 to 9 repetitions practice. Then they would introduce movement B. And then you'd do that in practice. But then they would go back and do movement A again. And then you do movement B. And then they'd add C. And then you would practice C for a while. Then you go back to movement A. Then you repeat B. Then you repeat C. And then maybe if there's enough time, they might even get a 4th, and they usually only give you 3 or 4 techniques per workout. Usually 1 standing or 2 with a variation, and 1 ground technique with a variation. And that's that if you ever check out any motor learning literature, the way you practice skill rehearsal, that is right in line with everything that had ever been taught as a physical education teacher.
Wow, that is cool. It sounds like like movement A is really like your fundamental movement, which you need to do correctly, and then movement B is a little bit more particular, like a little bit off of that fundamental branch, and then go back and practice that one and do that one again.
I'll do this, and maybe he'll do this. Okay, well, here's what you do in this situation. So it's, what I'm saying? And I just love the way they would, Horian in particular was like a real master. And it's really, I haven't been with his son. When I knew his sons, Henry and Hiron, they were just little kids pretty much. They used to run around and, they turned into some real specimens, man. Those little kids. And, it seems like they're really carrying on the tradition of just being really top-level teachers. And once again, not everybody wants to get into the modern-day style federation-type competitions. Listen, man, I did it. I loved it. It was really fun. But I realized that there's more to jiu-jitsu than that type of competition training, And there comes a point where you just don't care about it that much anymore. There actually comes a point where you show up and there's no one else your age group, man. I can't tell you how many tournaments I showed up to, and I was the only guy that signed up. It was like I had to go down like 2, sometimes 3 age group divisions just to fight a fight, man. And so that's disappointing. It's like my dad. He was always into road racing. He liked to run.
Yeah.
He just found he had that kind of endurance. And, he used to win a lot, man. I remember one year when I think he was like 80, he won the Walt Disney Marathon, either 81 or 82, I forget. But he said, I won because all my competitors were dead.
Well, that's really you win 2 different ways. You're still up running around and you win the race as well. I mean, that's 2 wins, right, for being healthy.
Exactly. So, jiu-jitsu is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But for your listeners out there, I maintain that most of your listeners will not be doing jiu-jitsu once they're past 45. I would say the vast majority. I do seminars all over the world, and I often ask people their age and say, "How many guys over 35?" A bunch of guys will raise their hand. Over 40, usually 2 or 3, 4 sometimes. Over 45, virtually nobody. Over 50, rarely. I saw one guy, 60 years old. 60 years old. Since I've been doing seminars. And the reason why is because most people train in such a way that it's harmful to their bodies, and they beat themselves up to the point where they just simply cannot continue. And a lot of times it's because they're injured. They'll come up with other excuses.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I'm too busy now, or, work's really catching up to me, or, well, I got family responsible. But it's almost always because they're hurt in some way or they're feeling pain. And it's because they, A, train too much, too often, too high volume, too frequently. And when they do train, they don't train smart. They train stupid. They train either too hard, too intense, or too competitively as they begin to get older. They're just still too competitive. And you just got to put that aside and just do the movement for the movement's sake, and do the jiu-jitsu for the pure joy of it. It's sort of like in weight training, right? You have intrinsic, extrinsic goals. Extrinsic would be external things like how much weight, how many reps, and so forth. And, I want to deadlift, triple body weight. I want to bench press double body weight. I want to be able to do 20 pull-ups, or I want to do, a single pull-up with 100 pounds strapped over my waist. That's all well and good when you're young. But there comes a point where you're not going to be able to do that type of training anymore. No way, man. And if all of your motivation was based on those external goals, when you get to the point where that's no longer possible, it's very disappointing and demotivating, and a lot of guys just simply quit at that point. And in reality, if you have intrinsic goals where you're trying to be as healthy and strong as possible, you want to work joint integrity so that you have full range movement in your joints. You want to maintain a fairly decent level of hypertrophy so you don't get that age-related muscle loss called sarcopenia. These are more intrinsic goals. These are internal goals. Maybe I want to work on the perfect rep today. When I do a push-up, it's going to be the most perfect, slow, high-tension push-up. I don't care how many I get. I'm just going to go until my muscles are tired. That's an intrinsic goal. Well, jiu-jitsu, you can be the same thing.
Yeah.
Guys that are just training because they want to beat everybody in the tournament, in the local tournament. They want to win worlds. They want to win this. They want to win that. Sometimes, it gets to the point where that's just no longer possible, And maybe you were started out training with a bunch of guys that you could pretty much dominate, but now they're passing you by, and now they're all catching you. And for some guys, that's so demotivating and so disappointing that they just end up quitting because the guys that they started with are now better than them. And that's because all of their goals were external. Who can beat who? Who can submit who? Who can win this medal or this trophy? That's the wrong reason to do it, I say. I mean, I'm not saying that it's okay. It's not a bad thing to do those things, but you need other types of motivations beside those things. Yeah. I like to do it just for the pure movement. I want to be able to fold. When someone's trying to pass my guard, I want to be mobile enough to fold my leg and defend myself, and pass my leg over. Or I want to be flexible enough that if I have a triangle and a guy's stacking me, I'm not going to hurt myself when I get stacked up on my neck. I want to maintain flexibility. See, these are like internal goals. I want to maintain the fluidity to be able to do my self-defense so that when I'm in my 90s, like Elliot or Gracie, I'll still be able to defend myself and feel very confident walking the streets, or, if some belligerent person comes up to me, I don't have to feel overly afraid. I know that I can. Intrinsic.
Yeah. So the huge drop-off in numbers at the age of 45 is, we're saying, is caused by the mentality of the student or person training. It may be physical, but even that roots down to the way that they train and they come in there with in their head that causes them to get hurt, or they're not having fun anymore because they're just not able to enjoy the same aspects that they once did. So they need to kind of look at their goals and what they're getting out of it. What do you get out of jiu-jitsu today?
Well, like in the beginning, it's all about offense, submitting guys. Towards the end, it's all about defense, not getting submitted. like towards the end, Elliot Gracie couldn't do anything they wanted. I mean, he was an old man, you know, and he got a little bit stiff and stuff, as you'd expect a guy in his 90s. He had to be 100 years old, right? Of course he's going to be stiff, you know. But, you know, he loved to lay down and just let you mount him and crawl all over him. And he would just basically defy you to try to trick him and catch him. He loved that mental game.
Yeah.
And that was really impressive to me, you know? And it was really funny because I remember one time I was playing that game a little bit, and I was admonished by the guy I was training. He was another black belt. And he said, come on, you know, you're being too passive, you know, be a little bit more aggressive. And I said, I was playing Elliot Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And he said, well, that's okay if you want to play an old man's game. But then I realized, well, I am kind of an old man. You're like 23 and I'm like 53, so I guess I am playing an old man's game. So at some point, my point is that everyone's going to have to play that old man's game at some stage. And you know, and for me, it's fun. You know, just having good. You're not going to be able to keep these young kids from passing your guard. You're not. You know, you're not going to. I think Henry, or maybe it was Hebron, one of the guys in one of the Gracie podcasts, they really said this perfectly. They were talking about an older black belt at their academy that teaches for them that got really hard time from some really athletic, strong blue belt. And the guy was like feeling like, fuck, I'm not even a black belt, right? Maybe I should just take it off. He was feeling really disillusioned with himself. And they were explaining to the guy that, look, man, for every decade, that's like a guy has a belt rank.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a 50-year-old guy fighting a 20-year-old guy, it's like, let's say, a black belt that's 50 years old is sparring or training with a really strong, athletic, young 20-something. That kid's basically like a black belt for each decade. And they said every 10 pounds is almost like a belt rank too. Weight and size make a lot of difference.
Yeah.
So if you got a guy that's a young, heavy guy, and he's fairly athletic, and he's a strong guy, and you have an older, smaller black belt, for sure he's going to give the guy a hard time. Because, I mean, in what world doesn't size and strength matter? Yeah? And certainly in the natural world, size and strength matter. Sure, technique can certainly counter an awful lot of size and strength, but only to a certain point. So, you know, older guys got to realize they're going to be playing a lot of defense with these young guys, you know. But I'm very careful now at 62 to pick my partners very carefully. I want to go with guys that are pretty technical.
Yeah.
And I like to go with smaller guys. Girls are great to train with. Women are trained really tricky, man. Really tricky. They think with a different part of the brain and their attacks, and some of their ideas can really surprise you sometimes. You know, their strategies are a little bit different than a guy, and it's fun. It's really, really fun. And they don't quite have the ego that a lot of guys do. And rarely will a woman use a lot of power, a lot of strength. You know, occasionally you get some pretty strong girls, but for the most part, most women, they really use trickery, and they use their bodies extremely well. So that's a good option for men wanting to stay with jiu-jitsu and train. You just wrestle with the girls, man.
I'm 35, and I'm trying to think when I train and when I decide to try to pick up a new technique, I want it to fit with me for many years down the road. I don't want to be doing a technique that I physically won't be able to do or might injure myself in the coming years. So I'm just kind of curious about like what your game is like the techniques, the positions that you prefer to use, and which you're able to, what you focus on.
Well, I mean, it gradually changes. You start getting better and better at being on the bottom. You know, you end up playing a lot of half guard, a lot of more open guard. You know, you get to a point where closed guard is okay, but, you know, you got to be pretty strong, you have to have a guy that's not very big, you know, to make your closed guard work really, really well. And you do a lot less takedowns and throws. You know, you really start to keep that to a minimum. I still like to do like what I call soft takedowns, where you just kind of during grip fighting, and just seeing if you can unbalance each other a little bit, but you don't actually carry through on the full throw.
Yeah.
And I was often wondering whether that actually still keeps you sharp if you did want to do a full throw. And the other day I had a kid who was about my size, maybe a little smaller, and he was like a white belt, and I could just throw him at will. So yeah, well, I mean, because technically, so I mean, from a self-defense point of view, right?
Yeah, untrained opponent.
Like someone, he couldn't stop a lot of the foot sweeps and basic stuff that I had been drilling. So it proved to myself that you can keep pretty sharp against, especially against someone that doesn't have the real technical skills.
Yeah, it's kind of like that training with like a slower speed, but you're doing that standing up. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of what I call a soft thing. You're not actually throwing each other, but you're playing like inside control, and you're playing the grip game. And you're doing like leg fencing with each other, kind of fencing with the foot sweeps and the trips, and the whole game is just to see if you can make the guy stumble or kind of have to hop a few times, which means you unbalance the guy. Yeah. It's a pretty nice little workout too, man. Grip and arms, and you can get the old heart rate up there a little bit. But it's also a good way to control the breath. Cool. But a lot of the guys also. This is something that's rarely addressed, although it's really gratifying to see Master Hickson, now that he's out of retirement and doing the seminar circuit again, breath control. That's something that was never addressed in most places. A lot of guys have no clue on how to breathe. They do not breathe properly at all. They use a very dysfunctional breathing pattern called Valsalva sync, where they will periodically hold their breath. It's like a grunting sound that they almost make, and then followed usually by panting. A lot of guys mouth breathe, and they're using the upper chest as opposed to the diaphragmatic breathing. And all this can actually shave years off the end of your life, as well as create a lot of negative stress hormones. And it's totally unnecessary. You can learn to use diaphragmatic nasal breathing through the nose, even in dire circumstances. It's something that should be addressed and worked on by everyone to make sure that they are using proper breath technique. And it also calms you down. When you start to breathe in the upper lobes of the lungs, you're already in panic mode, because the panic receptors, the emergency muscles of your neck and your upper rib cage and shoulders, that's only for dire emergencies, fight or flight. Yeah. Like life-saving. Now, some people will say, isn't jiu-jitsu fight or flight? Well, it shouldn't be, not if you're playing the game. You should remain calm. You want to remain as calm as possible. You don't want to become over-adrenalized. So if you're using that upper chest, you immediately, you become over-adrenalized. And you lose your ability to think and to remain calm. And, a lot of times there's panic, and then you resort to muscling, and because you lose your fine motor skills. So one way that you could train yourself out of that is to train with a mouthful of water. Okay. First of all, it's really nice because there's no talking. you know how many guys go to jiu-jitsu and it's just yak, and no one's actually training? Yeah. I Salo used to tell everyone to shut up. You can't talk. And another guy I really got some fantastic jiu-jitsu from is a guy by the name of Hedges Lebre, who runs Gracie San Diego. Fantastic coach, trainer, teacher. He was my son's coach when he won Worlds. At any rate, they weren't allowed talking. But if you put a mouthful of water, ain't nobody talking. Yeah. And you'd be amazed at how calm the jiu-jitsu is. It slows everybody down. And it's amazing how smooth your jiu-jitsu gets. Because you're forced to nasal breathe, which makes you more prone to breathing into the diaphragm the way you should, into those lower lobes of the lungs. And you'll find yourself being calmer, more relaxed. It's a really good thing. You don't have to do it all the time, obviously, but it's a really good thing to do, every now and again, just to kind of test yourself. And the jiu-jitsu becomes really technical because people just stay calmer. And that, like, if you start going too crazy, using too much power, all of a sudden you're not going to be able to maintain the mouthful of water, and you're going to have to swallow it and start to gulp and gasp. And
that's usually an indicator that you're probably using a little bit too much strength, a little bit too much power.
That is a very. I'm gonna have to try that. Now I'm a little nervous that I'm actually going to drown while I'm training jiu-jitsu instead of just get choked all the time.
Nah, you just swallow.
I know.
You, at some point, if your physiology gets taxed too much, you just involuntarily swallow.
So is there any? You kind of hinted at that people breathe incorrectly all the time, not just while training, but in general, it's a common thing for people not to breathe correctly. Is there something off the mat that we could work on as well?
Well, just be aware of your breathing, first of all. Just first of all, identify what kind of breather you are. Are you breathing into your lower diaphragm? Are you breathing into your ribs? It's called intercostal breathing. Or are you using clavicular breathing, breathing in your upper chest with your neck and shoulders? And are you a mouth breather, or are you inhaling through your nose? When you just do normal walking or maybe running or any kind of weight training, how are you breathing? Do you hold your breath and do what they call a partial glottal closure and kind of make grunts or noises or screams? You do get maybe a little boost sometimes from the Valsalva sink, but at the expense of your health. It really spikes blood pressure, and older people should definitely avoid it, And once you are aware of the type of breathing, then it's a good idea to start to work on it, especially just doing milder type activities. Every baby's born pretty much doing nasal diaphragmatic breathing, but right about school age, when we're forced to sit in chairs, like in kindergarten or whatever, kids start to lose the diaphragmatic breathing and they start to go to the upper chest. I don't have any proof of this, but I think it's because of the chair sitting, the excessive chair sitting. Chairs, they're awfully comfortable sitting, but the problem is they shorten the hip flexors, shorten the hamstrings. There's a tendency to round the shoulders and chest forward, which makes breathing a little bit more difficult. It's harder to do diaphragmatic breathing sometimes from a chair seated bent forward posture. And you see people with what they call forward head and round shoulders. A lot of the guys that do jiu-jitsu, they have desk jobs. It's one of the reasons they love jiu-jitsu so much. It gives them a chance to roll around with their brothers and sisters, like you did when you were a little kid, with your pajamas in the living room floor. Well, if you think of jiu-jitsu, it's kind of like wearing pajamas and you're rolling around on the floor, right? Like you did when you were a little kid. Unfortunately, though, because of the breath and the posture that they have all day, jiu-jitsu also creates a round shoulder, forward head, tight hip flexor type deal also. And that results in pain. You start to get lower back problems. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys suffer from that, from overuse and overdevelopment of the hip flexors. A lot of jiu-jitsu guys will have pretty flexible hips, but it's shocking how many of these guys have really tight hamstrings. I see a lot of guys that their spines are flexi-bendy and their hips aren't bad, but man, their hamstrings are really tight, and that's the result of sitting all day.
Okay.
So it's really important to try to counter the imbalances created from both your desk job during the day and jiu-jitsu at night. And it's interesting. I've correlated the chair sitting and jiu-jitsu produce almost the same bad postural habits. Basically from playing the guard a lot. So sometimes in your strength training and your weight training, conditioning programs, it's not so much about working the muscles that you use, but working the muscles that you don't use, so that you can keep a good homeostasis, good balance in the body and the joints. So I have a lot of upper neck and upper back exercises that I show people in my clinics and my workshops to help them balance. There's just ways that you can activate those mid-thoracic muscles so that you can instantly just improve your posture and stand up straight. So there's a lot of really cool exercises that I've developed over the years, just out of frustration for myself, really, that I do a lot of my workshops. And it's unfortunate there's a podcast, it'd be hard to show
but
you.
on your website, are they available there?
Yeah, well, these things do exist, though. And, it's one of the things I'm going to do at my Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle training camp. I'm going to do my first one this November, Jiu-Jitsu for a Lifetime in El Salvador. I'm going to have people working on these exercises. I'll show them the mobility and body balancing exercises that complement your jiu-jitsu perfectly.
You just mentioned that you're doing a lifestyle training camp in El Salvador in November?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's going to be on my website, maxwellsc.com.
And that's going to be, is it over several days? And what are you doing with that?
Yeah, it's going to be like a 2-week camp.
Okay, and and
all the details. Yeah, my young assistant here tells me that it's going up today. It's going to be put up on my website today.
Okay, so by the time this is out, it'll already be up.
maxwellsc.com. That stands for Strength and Conditioning. And then if they go, they can find that lifestyle training camp. It will be the first one I've done. But I think it's time. I think that there's a lot. Jiu-Jitsu becoming so popular worldwide. And there's a lot of guys, middle age and older, that are really attracted to the sport, and that really want to, engage and want to stay with it. It's really interesting. But I just wrote an article just recently on training for the older guy and how it differs from the younger guy.
Yeah, that was a great article.
Oh, thanks, man. That was actually the unedited version, and I wanted to fix that up a little bit. I've known Tony since he was just a 15-year-old kid, Tony Bazinski, that runs that. And he got excited and put it up there before I had a chance to actually rework that. But it was well received. But I did notice in some of the comments that some of the guys were saying, "Yeah, I just noticed the exact opposite, man. I've been getting stronger and faster." And you look down and you see that the guy, started when he was in his 40s or his 50s. And it's like that's absolutely true. If you're a businessman and if you've never done much, and you start doing jiu-jitsu, you will find that your physical attributes will increase a lot.
Yeah.
It can be a great movement. However, if you started when you were 10 years old like I did, man, you reach your peak a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it gets to a point where it just goes all downhill after that.
But
you reach that peak usually. I find people that train regularly can maintain a pretty high peak well into their mid-40s. You don't even reach your full level of strength until you're in your mid-40s. You reach your maximum muscular strength. I think I felt the best I had ever felt when I was between 40 and 45. I mean, I actually felt as good as I did when I was a college wrestler. I felt that strong, that good. But then once you reach the half-century mark, you definitely notice a big bump and a drop-off.
Just want to say thank you one more time for such an amazing interview from Steve Maxwell. Yet again, next week we'll be playing the second half. We'll pick up right where we left off. Gary, his breathing technique, I haven't done it yet, but I've done something similar since the interview. Get some water and keep the water in your mouth. That way you don't breathe through your mouth because it forces you to breathe through your nose. Otherwise, you end up having to swallow the water or you end up dribbling the water out, and you don't want to do that. Just holding a little bit of water in your mouth forces you to calm your breathing down and breathe through your nose. What I did was just close my mouth and not open it. And that worked. And I was calm. I mean, I think it does help, and I'm looking forward to doing the water trick and see if I could do it because I don't. That seems fun. That seems exciting. It seems different, but
yeah, I definitely going to try that. I can't wait to try it. And it does. I notice when I focus on breathing through my nose, I am a lot more calmer.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think it just makes you take that deeper breath into your lungs.
Yeah, and I've read so many times about, breathing with a diaphragm. It, gets more air or oxygen or whatever it is into your body.
Yeah.
But so maybe that's it. But I do find myself, whenever I find myself stressed out, I make sure I take deeper breath through my nose, and because I breathe through my mouth a lot, I've always had a little bit of trouble breathing through my nose. But when I focus breathing through my nose, I'm so much more calm.
Gary, do you typically have a mouthpiece in when you train?
I used to wear a mouthpiece. I stopped wearing a mouthpiece.
You can't breathe good with it.
Yeah,
No.
but I really don't understand if I do breathe more with my nose or my mouth while I'm rolling. I think I'll start trying to figure
I always
that out.
have a mouthpiece in, and the right time I don't, I seem to get hit in the mouth every time. But I don't. It kind of helps me not breathe through my mouth because it's a factor.
The mouthpiece is hard because I wear one of those 1980s retainers, the really big ones. So the mouthpiece has trouble fitting in there.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that to everybody, but since you're going to throw it out there, I'll back you up on that. 1980s retainer. I'm thinking about his breathing stuff, and something I've learned taking some EMT courses, I guess medical courses after my EMT or whatever. But like, there's your lungs, and then you've got the air in between your lungs and your mouth that doesn't get to your lungs. So if you're like breathing real fast, like panting, you're moving that air a lot, but you're not actually getting the air into where it counts to exchange oxygen. So, I think like a shallow breath is probably like you could probably figure out like it's a percent effective because a certain percent of like half of the air doesn't even enter into your lungs. Yeah. But a deeper breath would probably be like 80 or 70% effective. So I don't know if you're able to breathe a little deeper, it's got to be a more efficient way to go. I don't know. I'm not. He's obviously Steve studied breathing a lot more than I have, but I just remember them saying if Gary, if you're breathing like over 20 times a second, your breathing is ineffective. Maybe it's 25, but we need to slow you down. Like 20. And get you to take some deeper breaths because you're not getting it into very much of the air into your lungs. I mean, that's all there is to it.
And that's one thing I've really, in probably the last year or so, tried to get better at that point, at breathing. Yeah. And I know it does help your cardio. It does keep you calm, which is also going to help your cardio. Yeah. So a couple of very important points there.
I think, as we get better, it might be easier to breathe. But really, just not caring if you lose, if you get tapped, that will help you out in the defensive spot. Well, if you get caught, I get caught. That's okay. I'm training, and it'll help you. Okay, slow it down. Let's calm things down here. In the long run, I think it'll be better for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's like when we first started, we were, you'd spaz out and everything, and I remember my instructor John Castillo always saying, "Slow down, take some deep breaths," and really, I didn't know what he meant at that point. I just was trying with every ounce of energy to get out of position.
Yep. So the interview continues next week. It same great stuff, guys, coming at you. It just continues the conversation. If you want more stuff from the podcast here, we do have some audiobooks available for you to download. They're fairly short, 15, 20 minutes each. You could go to the website, bjjbrick.com, or go to the Facebook page and enter in your email address. And then on Tuesdays, it sends out the show notes. And at the bottom of the show notes for the podcast, it will have a link to a Dropbox folder. It's got some books. We have Breaking Your Limits, How to Compete in a BJJ Tournament Even If You're Busy, and Tilt, How to Make Changes in Your BJJ, or How to Make Your BJJ Game More Balanced. So that's what we've got in there now. I've got a couple more I need to just edit and put them up in there, but they might be in there any day.
Yep, so definitely check those out.
Let's see. What else? Gary, good news, man.
Good news. What do we got?
We've got some reviews I'm going to mention here. I guess I should check them more often, but it's just, out of all the stuff we got going on, it seems to...
Yeah, that's probably at the bottom of the list.
Well, it's just, they're so motivating. It's awesome.
Yeah, so, it is. It's neat when we get reviews.
Yeah. Jay Coleman said it's great. I appreciate the guests as well as the insight from the hosts. That's very nice.
That's awesome.
And then Music is My King-Size Bed. That's the name. It's pretty good. Best BJJ podcast I've found. So
awesome.
There are others out there. Keep looking, but I'm glad you found us and you think we're the best. So
Yeah, we appreciate that.
I'm not going to tell you we're not, but there are a lot of good podcasts out there. Somebody put their name as Burn, BRN, I don't know. Positive and informative. Been doing jiu-jitsu for 1 year, white belt, 3 stripes, finally get to feel like I'm not totally lost. The podcast has been very helpful. There are others out there, but none like this. Absolutely no egos, just good info in a lighthearted tone. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Keep up the good work. Thanks. All those that were 5 stars.
Yeah, we appreciate that. That's neat. It almost sounds like we wrote those ourselves.
That would be, yeah, that's the strategy, Gary.
I promise you we didn't.
So anyway, those came in over the course of February. If you want to write one, we will see it. I don't check them every day, obviously, but we do get to see them, and it is motivating because they're like anything. You have days when you feel like, oh, I don't know if this is working out. You get frustrated. Interviews cancel. Editing takes a long time. Sometimes things happen, and motivation, like with anything, it goes up and down. But these are always like a good booster shot of motivation, and it really means a lot. Or you can send us an email. Or a message on Facebook, and we really like interacting with you guys.
Yep, or you could fly over Wichita, Kansas, and hire a smoke airplane to put the review out over the sky so we could see it.
Typically,
typically that's a little too expensive, but you're free to do that if you.
I guess I don't know who they would hire to do that. Just the thing
There's
behind it that
companies.
They drag, the little banner would be enough.
Yeah.
To have the guy doing loops in the air to spell out things is that's very difficult. So
yeah, I think that's a better idea.
To fly over with the banner is a great way.
Yeah, because you can get those anywhere.
Yeah,
Make your own.
Those are cheap. I'm sure they do that for a few $100.
Yeah,
fly around all day, buzzing the highway, and have an inappropriate banner that nobody understands.
That nobody understands.
BJJ Brick podcast, and then has 5 stars.
Send me a patch.
So, anyway, we do appreciate the reviews. However you want to send them. We also have a bjjbrick@gmail.com is a good way. Also, if you get a passenger pigeon, I'll keep my window open and get one in that way. That's it. And
Falcons work well too.
They don't have the Falcons don't deliver news, Gary.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You don't know the passenger pigeon story?
No, I don't.
They used to tie little notes to pigeons' legs, and then they would always, like their homing pigeons, they go back to the same place. So if you make where they grew up, like a post office, and then you take them away to like another little town, and you've got a message to give to that hometown, you write it on the pigeon's leg, and in a few hours he just shows up.
That's a better idea than my idea, which was get about 5,000 miles of string, tie it to a can, put it to our front door, and then drive home.
It's like those soup
500
commercials.
miles away, and then call us on that.
Like the soup commercials,
Yeah, yep.
That's a lot of string.
We got some good ideas.
Yeah, these are all quality. Quality ideas.
Over quantity is what we believe.
I don't even know about that. So, anyway, next week it will be Steve Maxwell. He'll be returning for the second half.
Definitely tune in next week, I guess. Not stay tuned. Tune in next week for part 2.
Yep. So, I think that about wraps up the show. Gary, have a great rest of your birthday.
Why, thank you.
And I think it means a lot to the audience that you took time out of your birthday to talk with us. So
I wouldn't miss it. I enjoy doing this, so I appreciate you letting me on your podcast, so thank you.
It's ours, buddy, so happy to make the Skype call.
And I didn't even know what a podcast was at that time.
Now you're all technological. Now he's got a cell phone, everybody.
Yeah.
There's an episode out there where you did not have a cell phone. A lot of them, we talk about that. So
I'm growing up.
Yeah, times are changing, my friends. We'll catch you next week.
You listening.
Stay sweaty, my friends.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
To get a bronze in the intermediate is just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, but if he would have,
It's not necessarily getting punched, but my kid's getting slaughtered out there on the mat a lot of times. And when you're a kid, you want to win every time. And
That's all, folks.
I mean, but if he would have